You know, I got to the point I hated myself. I looked in a mirror, I saw a junkie, I saw a convict, I didn't see a good guy. I saw nothing redeemable about me.
David Stoker held a deep and confusing secret from his parents since early childhood, that he'd been molested by his babysitter.
I remember them reading a paper about a kid that had been molested and talking about how that person was nasty and disgusting, and I thought that they were talking about the kid, not the perpetrator. So I put two and two together, and I was this disgusting, nasty kid.
He held his secret close and felt he deserved the pain of his parents' later divorce and beatings from his grandfather, who he moved in with.
He would beat me and then call into school and say, hey, he's not gonna come into school this week, he's gonna help me on the farm, and wait for the bruises to heal up before he'd let me go back to school. That was kind of my punishment for being this disgusting, nasty kid, so I internalized it even more.
The mental effects of the abuse made it hard to relate with other kids. David was often alone. One night while out walking, he met a group of kids and joined them as they smoked a joint.
Probably the second or third time that the joint went around was the first time that I can say I ever felt like I fit in. And it numbed me. I wasn't thinking about my past. If I drank enough or smoked enough, then I couldn't feel the pain. And I realized over time that if I stayed numb, not only did I not think about my past, but nobody could hurt me now.
In high school, David's drug use escalated from marijuana and alcohol to methamphetamine.
I ended up dropping out of high school because school got in the way of my partying time. And as my substance use progressed, well, I ended up breaking into sheds and garages and stealing stuff and pawning it, and ended up getting sentenced to prison at 20.
After serving a near 2-year prison sentence, he learned how to cook and distribute meth. Still using, David's life slid farther into darkness.
I got to a point I didn't care about my life. I didn't care about anybody else's. I didn't care if I hurt you. My main focus was making money, sleeping with girls, and staying high. That's all I really cared about. It was all about my pleasure, and if I hurt somebody, I could really care less. When I died, I turned to dust, so why did anything that I do matter today anyway?
David spent nearly 2 decades addicted to meth. He was an atheist and suicidal.
I never saw myself escaping. You know, I felt hopeless all the time. I was depressed all the time. My entire life, I felt like everything that had been done to me and everything I'd done, I walked around with that on my shoulders.
He tried to quit meth and began drinking heavily. Then he met a couple who invited him to church. After several weeks, he joined them.
I like to make fun of Christians and try to make myself feel intellectually superior. You know, and that's kind of the person I was. And these people kind of hung on me anyway. And they loved me when I didn't love myself. And they cared about me when I didn't care about myself.
He continued going to church but felt powerless to stop drinking. Then one day, while on his way to a party where he planned on getting drunk, he heard a Christian song on the radio that spoke to him.
The first words out of the speaker were, "I wish you could see me now. I wish I could show you how I'm not who I was." And when those words came out, I heard a voice I'd never heard before. And it said, "Go home, you got this." And I thought about it, and I pulled over to the side of the road, and I sat there and cried for probably 5-10 minutes. And when I could see again, I turned around and I went home.
Desperate for change, he set up a meeting with James, a pastor at the church.
I've tried everything else. You know, at this time, I've been to treatment more times than I can count on one hand. You know, I've taken medication, I've seen psychiatrists, psychologists, and you know, he's like, do you believe that Jesus died for your sins? And that thought of not having to walk around with all of my transgressions, with not having to continue to beat myself up for all the things people had done to me. I mean, it reduced me to tears when I was talking to James.
David surrendered his life to Jesus that day. He says everything changed.
And I felt like a weight had been lifted. All those things that I'd had on my shoulders that whole time, I mean, it just kind of felt like they disappeared. And it was nice to actually have hope that there was more than just this life. And that hope gave me a whole new outlook.
He was immediately set free from drugs, alcohol, and a broken view of himself.
Christ took all of that from me. You know, that whole, I like the words tabula rasa. You know, it means blank slate. And I like the fact that I thought that my life had already been written, and now I have a clean slate to start over with. He's allowed me to see myself as something other than a convict and a junkie. You know, I'm made in God's image. You know, I'm able to look at myself and not see just a piece of junk, which is what I've always saw my whole life. You know, I'm able to wake up in the morning with a smile on my face, and I'm able to be proud of the person I am today, and I'm able to give hope to other people. And without Christ in my life, none of that happens.